They told me I wasn't wife material 3 weeks before my wedding. My mother-in-law said it standing in her own kitchen, stirring tea she never offered me. She said, "Some women marry up. Some women just marry lucky." I remember smiling. I remember not crying until I got to my car. I married her son anyway. His name was Daniel. He held my hand at the altar and whispered, "You don't need them to love you. You just need me to." I believed him completely. For the first 2 years it was small things. A comment here. A silence there. His sister Priya would host family dinners and forget to text me the address until an hour before. His mother would introduce me to guests as Daniel's wife, never by name like I was a job title he'd filled. I let it go. I told myself families take time. Then came the paperwork. It started innocently. Daniel came home one evening with a folder and said, "Dad needs us to sign something for the family property taxes. It's routine." I signed. I didn't read it closely, I trusted him. A few months later another form. Then another. Each time Daniel had an explanation ready before I even asked. "It's for insurance. It's for the business audit. It's nothing, just formality." I want to be honest with you. I noticed the pattern before I understood it. That's the strange thing about instinct. It arrives quietly, long before your mind is ready to listen to it. The first real crack came at Christmas, 4 years into the marriage. Daniel's father, Robert, pulled him into the study after dinner. I walked past the door and heard him say, "We need her name on this one too. It has to look clean." Daniel's voice lower. "She won't ask questions if I explain it right." I didn't confront them that night. I smiled through dessert. I complimented the pie. But something in me had shifted, quietly, permanently. That's when I started paying attention the way you pay attention to a house that's settling wrong. Not panicking. Just watching where the cracks appeared. Over the following months I began keeping copies. Every document I signed I photographed with my phone before handing it back. I told no one, not even Daniel. I opened a folder on my laptop labeled recipes. Nobody in that family had ever shown interest in my cooking, so I knew it was safe. I started noticing names on those documents I didn't recognize. Company names. An LLC called Ashcroft Holdings. A property address in another state I'd never been to. My signature was on all of it, dated over the span of 6 years. One afternoon while Daniel was at work, I drove to the county clerk's office 2 towns over, the one tied to that unfamiliar address, and requested public property records. I said I was considering a purchase in the area. The clerk had no reason to doubt me. I remember my hands were steady even though my heart wasn't. What I found was this. A property worth close to $800,000, held under Ashcroft Holdings LLC. And under member of record, listed clearly was my name. Not Daniel's. Not Robert's. Mine. I sat in my car in that parking lot for a long time. I didn't scream. I didn't call Daniel demanding answers. I have never been a woman who confronts before she understands. So instead I made an appointment, quietly on my lunch break, with a lawyer 3 counties away, someone with no connection to Daniel's family, no chance of the story circling back before I was ready. She looked over the documents I'd photographed for years and said something I will never forget. "Whoever set this up wasn't protecting the family. They were protecting themselves, using you as the shield." It turned out Robert's construction business had been sued twice in the prior decade. Once for a workplace injury. Once for a contract dispute that ended in a 6-figure judgment against him personally. Rather than risk losing family assets, Robert had been quietly transferring property and holding companies into names that couldn't easily be traced back to him. Daniel's name was too obviously connected. His sister's name had already been used and flagged once by a previous creditor's attorney. So they used mine. The woman who wasn't wife material. The woman who wouldn't ask questions, who trusted her husband, who signed what she was told to sign because she believed in the family she'd married into. I wasn't unworthy in their eyes. I was useful. There is a difference, and it took me years to understand which one I actually was. I kept this to myself for another 8 months. I gathered everything. Every form, every LLC filing, every property record with my name quietly buried in the fine print. I hired a forensic accountant privately, paid in cash from an account Daniel didn't know existed. Money I had been setting aside since that Christmas Eve conversation in the study. Then, 10 years to the month since our wedding, Robert's construction company was named in a new lawsuit. Bigger this time. And suddenly my phone would not stop ringing. Daniel called first. Then his mother. Then, for the first time in a decade, Robert himself called me directly. He said, "We need your signature to transfer the Ashcroft property before the case moves forward. It has to happen this week." I let the silence sit there for a moment before I answered. I said, "I understand you need my signature. But before I sign anything else, I think we should discuss why my name has been on 6 properties and 2 companies I've never once set foot in." There was a long pause. Then Robert said carefully, "It was never anything personal." I said, "No, that's exactly the problem." I didn't yell. I didn't need to. I simply told him that any further signature would require my own attorney present, full financial disclosure, and my name formally and permanently removed from every asset associated with Ashcroft Holdings, effective immediately, regardless of what it cost them in the lawsuit. They had no choice. Legally, I held more leverage over that family's finances than any of them had ever imagined I would. Daniel tried to explain later alone in our kitchen. He said, "I thought I was protecting you by keeping you out of the details." I looked at him and said, "You didn't keep me out of the details, Daniel. You put my name on all of them. There's a difference." I left 6 weeks after that. Not out of anger, out of clarity. They spent 10 years deciding I wasn't good enough to be family. What they never told me was that I was good enough to be their insurance policy. In the end, the woman who wasn't wife material was the only signature standing between them and everything they were afraid of losing. I signed my name one final time on the divorce papers. That signature at least was entirely my own.